All right, let's speak about this matter further now. The Secretary General of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, Advocate Dali Mpofu, joins us live in studio. A very good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. You are calling on Judge Mokgoatlheng to reflect deeply on his statements last week. He's done so. He's issued a heartfelt apology. Are you convinced?
It's a tough one. Good evening. It's a tough one, Bongiwe. You know, the only problem is that this is the second time this very same judge is doing this. And therefore, it really is worrisome, I must say that. But, you know, we are not an unforgiving people. I made the remark earlier somewhere else that, you know, we have, as black people, who have even forgiven people who never asked for our apology. So, you know, it's a difficult one. So I think that Pabasa's position will be that we're happy that we called out racism. We will continue to do so. We'll never get tired of calling out racism. And to that extent, the judge did the right thing upon reflection. And we want to thank the people, his family members, his wife, and all those people who prevailed on him to do the right thing. The point of the matter is that you cannot tolerate that kind of crass racism from the bench. Well, you cannot tolerate it from anywhere, for that matter, but more so from the bench of South Africa, which is a representative of our people and a custodian of the Constitution. And therefore, the judge must reflect really on what steps he must take to rehabilitate himself from this kind of what seems to be a deep-seated belief in the inferiority of black people. What
steps would you propose?
Well, that's between him and his God. I think he must just reflect on the kind of hate that is repeatedly being caused. And to the extent that the apology was directed at the people of South Africa, the people of South Africa will decide if they forgive him. But for our part, we can only say that not only he, but any other people in those positions who are harboring racist thoughts, maybe he verbalized what other people are thinking. But to the extent that he verbalized them, then it's very regrettable.
He says, though, that for him this is out of character. He says in the decades that he's practiced, he's never held this view, and does even admit that they would have been, you know, these remarks would have been very hurtful towards his late son as well. And I know that you, as an organization, had called on the judge president to speak to him. He did say that the judge president and the deputy judge president spoke to him. But then you were also speaking about the JSC looking at this particular matter. Are you satisfied with the fact that he's spoken to the judge president and the deputy judge president, or are you still looking at the Judicial Service Conduct Commission, you know, route here, or does it end?
Well, we will have well, the apology only came today. I think before the end of the week, we will reflect on that and take a position. But as I say, to the extent that he was counseled by his fellow churches and the leadership, we obviously are pleased about that. And but we're saying that he should do more than that, if possible, to reflect on his own conduct. And let me say this, Bongiwe. I know Judge Ratha Mokgoatlheng personally. You know, when I was an attorney, he was one of our senior attorneys that we looked up to. So I know him at a personal level, and I could say that I never thought he had this side to his character. So, you know, to the extent that he regrets it, we hope that it's a lesson. It's not personal. It's not about him. It's not about how we feel personal about him. We will call out racism whenever it shows its ugly head in South Africa. And it must be called out for what it is, and all racists lurking out there behind any veil must know that we will not tire.
I'm going to stay with your personal, you know, knowledge of him. In all the time you've known him, is he a man that's known to have said things like this?
Absolutely not. As I say, I mean, he comes from the stock of attorneys that was just before us, who really bore the brunt of racism, from magistrates and from judges, from apartheid courts. So it's very disappointing from that perspective. At some stage, he was an activist even in the legal circles. So we just don't know what got into him. The problem is that we are so damaged ourselves that we start to internalize our own oppression and have self-hate, and we need to unlearn the kind of racial abuse that has been meted out to black people. So this is a much deeper problem. There are people much more qualified than me who have diagnosed, if you like, the kind of deep-seated racism that gets embedded in the victims of racism.
And one wonders then, in light of all of this, because he is saying that the lawyers of the accused are free to even bring an application for his recusal if need be. So does the association that you belong to think that he's still fit to continue?
Well, that's a very difficult question which cannot be answered in the abstract. The issue of recusal is a particular type of procedure which is based on the interest of the litigant, not even the victims of whatever racism or anything else. But the litigant, if the litigant feels that they will not get justice from a particular judge, then an application will be made. And I'm confident that Judge Mokgoatlheng, as he indicated, would entertain such an application on its own merits. So one cannot preempt it. Let me just say this from my own experience. It happens that sometimes a judge does something which you, as a lawyer, you just tell the client, judges do this and so on. But if the client insists that, well, you might understand it as a lawyer, but I don't accept it, then you are compelled professionally to make the recusal application, having made having given the advice. So lawyers are more resilient in a way, because we've been abused and insulted and all sorts of things by judges and all sorts of the people who might want to abuse the power and their office. But the test is not the lawyer's feelings or ill feelings or whatever. It's the client, it's the litigant. Yeah.
How common is it? Because you say that you've been abused, but how common is such a picture in a court of law? I know this is playing out in full view of the public, but other cases wouldn't be.
Yeah, well, this kind of abuse is not common, I must say. It used to be common. I mean, when I practiced in the 80s and the 90s, if I told you some of the stories, you would think I'm making it up. So there was more open racism, even from the bench. I mean, I once had a very unfortunate discussion with a judge in chambers. But I told him off, and we had our thing, and it was buried there. I'm sure if he's not alive, he went to the grave with what I had told him about his racism. But so this was more prevalent. Sometimes it was subtle, particularly in the magistrate's court. But now it's if it is there, I'm sure it is there. The race is everywhere, but it's much more hidden.
So just before I let you go, when you look at the profession itself, there are very many issues, especially of transformation, that are still spoken about. And one wonders if there is going to be such an utterance that is made, what kind of consequences does it have, particularly on the issues of transformation within the judiciary?
Very, very important question that, Bongiwe. I'm a big believer. When I sat in the JSC, this is something I said day in, day out, that transformation is not just about pigmentation or gender, or, you can have somebody who has internalized gender discrimination as a woman. You can have a person who has internalized racism who's black. And so transformation at that level, yes, it's important, the demographic thing, but it has to go deeper, and people have to be educated continuously to unlearn some of the stereotypes that have been created in South Africa. And maybe this, if there's a positive side to this, I can't see it much, but if there is, maybe it brings that debate up. Very important. What do we really mean by transformation? Is it just bean counting, 20 black, 5 women, and so on? Or is it a much more internal transformation in the true sense of seeing the world through the prism of the Constitution? And I think we're very far from that.
All right, and I'll leave you to. Thank you so much for coming through. And one waits then to see at the end of the week what becomes the decision of your organization. Are you taking it further with the JSC or does it end here? But thank you so much for talking to us. That was the Secretary General of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, Advocate Dali Mpofu.